Making your thesis arguable. In theory, this is the one thing that we all know is the most important thing about a thesis is that it's an argument, a claim. But a lot of times we find ourselves saying something to which the reader responds by saying, yeah, well, of course that's true. And I've left you a Mr. Sprouse quote in order to think about that as well. But it's very, very important that your claim be a claim rather than an observation. So if it's patently true, then it's not arguable, it's not in question, and you're going to have to revise. So here are some examples of just things that are patently true. Nobody's going to argue that Disney princesses have realistic body types. So while that might be something interesting that you want to explore, it might be a topic that you're interested in, you haven't really made an argument about it yet. Same thing here with Thanksgiving. That Thanksgiving is for family, fellowship, friends, family, and fellowship. Of course it is. I mean, somebody might say, well, it's stupid, but that's more opinion potentially than it is an argument. So you need to find something more arguable to say. Supportable. Here are some that I've modified and found in some recent Nonfiction Friday mini essays that you should take a look at. And of course, yes, the world has faced violence throughout history. That is absolutely true. And peer pressure is a cause of issues facing youth. Yes, that is absolutely true. And since they're absolutely true, while they might be really interesting topics, they are not yet thesis statements that can support an essay. So now we've got to figure out how to fix it. Here's some things that I might suggest, and you don't have to stick with these things. Once you've fixed them, once you've started here, you can actually modify them so that they're no longer in there, and it's just a starting point for you. But you might start by adding a clause that puts what you want to say in contrast with a counterclaim, kind of like the they say, I say essay. So you could use the word although, you could use while, some may argue, you could use a but. As long as you're really, really thinking about what that counterclaim is, that's going to be the key. So let's take a look at some of those that we started with. Now I've made a much more complex idea here. While many of the recent Disney princess iterations have attempted to incorporate more racial and ethnic diversity, the princesses' unrealistic body types undermine the strong potential for them to be strong role models. So here, I've put it in contrast with something else that says, well, Disney princesses are important because of this. And I said, but this also undermines that. So there might be a difference of opinion that we're getting out there. Here also, with the Thanksgiving example, putting in contrast the heavy commercialization against the importance of why families are important on Thanksgiving. So you're thinking about why that's the topic that you want to talk about and what specifically you have to say about it. Here are some of the student examples that I've shifted a little bit. And again, I have no idea really if this is where a student would want to go with these, but it is a place that could go now that we're setting up those contrasts. You need to go through this process in order to make sure by thinking about what exactly the counterclaim is, and not just in a broad sense of violence hasn't really been a problem throughout history, or somebody might argue that Disney princess bodies are not unrealistic, but thinking more in terms of a specific thing that you want to say about the big, broad, unarguable claim that you may have started with. And like I said before, you do not have to stick with all of these specific clauses. Once you have put it in those terms, then you can potentially take that out. It does sometimes help your audience to have that explicit contrast to say, okay, I know exactly why this is arguable because the counter argument has also been introduced here. So go ahead and try this with your own thesis.